Good on you, man.
Short weekend.
How was Cape Town? Was it hot or cold?
I don't know. I've been packing, so it's been humid and warm for me, but I've been
How
moving
is it?
boxes, and yeah, it's been a hot
The
couple of
worst.
days for us. And
How
Joburg,
is it?
you still enjoying your summer thunderstorms and everything? Well,
No, it's
you
hot.
were away this weekend.
I was away with Sim's parents. We joined them Friday night and Saturday night and Sunday night. We came back early. It was hot. Even in Joburg now, it's boiling hot, man. Like, I don't know, 30 degrees or whatever the case is. But it's good. Not complaining. It's been a very, what's the word, cold, rainy summer. So to get some sun is good. Get my pool working. And yeah, no, it's been good, eh?
Yeah,
And if
man.
you just joined us, by the way, there's quite a few new faces here, which is Andrew and Dave's coffee chat every Monday at 1. We'll talk about something different. Also give you an update as to what's happening in our property portfolios, anything new, any new viewings. I viewed a property this morning at 11 o'clock, which is very interesting, which I'll talk about. So yeah, just say hello in the chat box. Let us know where you're from. Are you a SAPIN member, a TPA member? Are you an investor? Are you looking to get started? Tell us more about yourself. We'll guide you. We'll connect you. We'll help you. If you have any property questions, pop them in the chat box or the comments box, because today is around coaching. So it's not something that we do often, myself and Dave, but quite a few people have been reaching out, asking about coaching. How does it work? So Dave mentioned on last week, why don't we get a few of the coaches on and one or two of the students on, just to have a casual chat, see how it's going, what's working, what's not working. How does that sound, Dave? Is that good?
Yeah, 100% sounds good. Guys, if you are joining us, let us know where you're joining us from. Where are you? What are you doing? If you're here for the first time, also please let us know. But we'll go through some of our formalities during. I'll quickly talk about what's happening this week at SAPIN and at the academy, and then we'll start talking to all the coaches, which is going to be fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely, eh? And I want to update you with this viewing I did, Dave. Do you remember a few weeks ago in the coffee chat, someone asked about that area in Edenvale? I was like, yeah, no, it's a good area. About two,
Yeah.
3 weeks ago. So I went to go, so Jean-Paul went to go view it, and I decided to go view it at 11 o'clock. The property's busy being repossessed. In fact, the bank took transfer last week, and it's across the road from where Craig lives. The Airbnb, literally, it's 2 doors
Yeah.
down. It's number 6. Now, this property is a comparable for 5 million in the area. I took a professional, very well experienced, been in the industry for a long time, estate agent to the property with me, and Craig's wife, Julie. And this house is massive, Dave. It's like 540 squares under roof. That's a big house. Okay, 540 in a boomed-off area. So we're busy walking around. We're like, just this house is massive, upstairs, downstairs. And I'm just like a potential cha-ching. But because it's so big and the property's run down and the wood is rotten and there's damp and there's cracks, at the end of it, so now the bank's saying they want 3.3 million. Do I think it's worth 5 million after reno? Yes. But what we discovered, and it's how scary this is, when we walked away from the property, it needs at least 2.5 million rand refurb. At least 2.5 million, right?
Nope.
You build 2 houses for that. Number 2, because it backs onto Elm Street, just the fact when it backs on the back of Elm Street, which is a busy road, okay? The agent was telling me more about in that specific suburb. As soon as you spend 4 million rand or more, buyers become very picky. They want location is key. So that property, if you had to pick it up and put it where Craig's house is across the road, away from the busy road, easy 5.5 million, no problem. But because it backs onto a busy road, and when I stood there, you could hear people hooting in the traffic. 1.5 million knocked off the price straight away, going sell price will be 4 million. Okay, great, 4 million. Minus the renovation cost, 2.5 million. 1.5 million, minus agent cost, minus buying cost. I've got to pay less than 1 million rand for that property just to make it work if I'm going to flip it. So that, and this is the scary part, because people go past and go, oh no, 500 grand or 800 grand or whatever the case is, and it just becomes a big mess. So golden tip from today is take an agent, an experienced agent who knows an area. Like this lady has got the market share in the area. She knows every single house. She knows all the neighbors. She knows what they can sell for. And she said, Andrew, I'm telling you now, I'm not going to get you more than 4 million. Yet another inexperienced agent from outside the area looked at sold comparables, not location, sold comparables, going, you'll get 5.5 for this. yes, if I pick the house up and I move it. So, yeah, very, very interesting viewing today. And again, that's the second repossessed property that I've viewed in a week. One was NetBank, one was ABSA. So, Dave, I'm starting to see these repos coming up. And in fact, the property we're going to talk about in a minute, Colin, after we bring one of our coaches on board, is a repossessed property. So yeah, that's how my Monday's gone so far, Dave.
I don't know. You said 2.5 million refurb. It's even, especially in Joburg, walk away. That's like a development. It's the same job. It's that's sort of the same that I've spent here in Cape Town. My biggest reno. That's what I learned. Like I'd rather just so much.
And doing a deal that big, you want to make at least $1 million profit, right? So before I start, I'm in the deal for $3.5 million. I haven't spoken about agents' costs, holdings costs, buying costs, anything like that. But here's the thing, Dave. It's been repossessed. Somebody's going to have to buy that property. So now, don't get me wrong. I'll buy that property if I get it for $500,000. If I do, I'm going to do it. Natasha Swart saying Nightmare on Elm Street. Absolutely. Cool. So, yeah, Dave, why don't you take us through all the events, eh?
Yeah, so guys, it's a really exciting week. Obviously, we've got a couple of chats. The brokerage has a webinar a little bit later, so I think when we got Nico on in a bit, we can talk about that. So that's tonight at 6 o'clock. Wednesday night for everyone who's in Cape Town. Looking at you, I just saw someone new joining from Cape Town. We've got a premier event happening in Cape Town on the Wednesday night, which is going to be really fun and exciting. It's down the foreshore. Really good to have our first in-person event in Cape Town happening. Thursday, Andrew, you and I are on a live stream with Robin Booth again. So that's the second one. We'll be speaking to Ridwan Bassa, one of the finalists for Invest of the Year Award 2021, and also an Airbnb host. So really good to get some insights as to what's happening with Airbnb. Thursday night, we've got our support webinar. So Feb, we're doing a support webinar. It's our usual. For those of you who have a professional membership, an intermediate membership, or have access to any of the courses, you can join us on that one. So the links will be going up for that later today. And then, Andrew, you've got a 2-day workshop this weekend in Joburg. Do you want to maybe talk about that? Talk about that with us?
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Yeah, so there's a two-day workshop happening, Dave. This weekend from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock on the Saturday and 9 till 3 on the Sunday. And I'm bringing Mark Berman. I'm bringing the property coaches. And we're just going to talk property for 2 days, running through different scenarios. I've got a full section on property funding solutions. So from all the different banks and how to use them. And not just your traditional banks. You know, we talk about tough and we talk about business partners. There's group scenarios, group exercises. And Dave, I've got 2 full days. So I'm going to have Shirley Boy and Bruno. I'm going to bring the power team into the room. And people are going to walk away with another level of experience. I'm going to keep it practical. I'm going to keep it fun. It doesn't matter if you're looking to buy your very first investment property and you want to know how to get started, or you have a few properties and you feel stuck and you want to be in a learning environment. Lunch is included. There'll be a workbook. So if you are keen, if you want to build up a property portfolio, I'll be covering a lot of information this Saturday and Sunday. Mark Berman, you'll be there as well. So yeah, it'll be great, this weekend.
Cool. 100%. So guys, there is a link in the chat box for the workshop, and we'll add a link in a second for all the other events that are happening. So really good, busy week for us. It's going to be nice to be going back. But Drew, we've got a couple of the coaches sitting there. We can move on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring on Jade first. Where's Jade? How's it, Jade?
Hey, Andrew. How's it, Dave? Andrew, how are you guys doing?
Good on you, man.
Yeah, man.
Very well, thanks.
Awesome. So, Jade, introduce yourself for us.
Yeah, guys. So, Jade Barkhuizen from PE, property coach down here for the Property Academy. Basically invest in student accommodation multi-lets. Love creative financing, busy with the redevelopment of a property down here in PE as well. Yeah, just super passionate about property. Great to be here as one of the coaches.
Absolutely. And Jade, tell us about, you're a coach, right? But you've also been a student. Maybe for all the listeners, there's a few people on this live stream right now that are brand new to property or brand new to SAPIN Academy. Reverse the clock a few years and go back a few years. I remember you sat there, Port Elizabeth. I was your speaker on the workshop. Why did you take up the coaching? Why didn't you do it yourself?
Andrew, I think it was, like back in 2013, I started reading books on property investing, typically Robert Kiyosaki stuff. But it really didn't tell you exactly how to go out and do it. And after that weekend, you were speaking, it really just hit home for me. Moved forward to the coaching package, and then just Dave was actually my coach, and we did a flip, I think, within the first 2 or 3 months, and I made all my money back that I spent on coaching and the weekends, and that was really the start of the journey for me, and I just was hooked. That property just became an absolute passion of mine after that, and then was privileged enough after doing a couple of deals to become a coach myself.
Yeah. And Jay, when was that? How long ago was that?
That was 2017 when I attended a 2-day workshop down here in PE. So I bought my first property in 2013, but it was just the normal thing where an agent sold me the property, and it looked very nice. But every month I had to pay in about 3,000 Rand after my bond and the levies and the rates and taxes, maintenance. And I just thought that's the way you do it. And then in 2017, when I attended that 2-day workshop with you guys, that's when I saw I was doing it wrong.
Absolutely, eh? So 2017 to 2021. So is it fair to say it's made a difference for you personally?
Andrew, absolutely. It's been life changing. I can honestly tell you the deal I just concluded is basically going to give me financial independence. It's just crazy when I even say that, but in the space of just a couple of years, you can really set yourself up for the rest of your life.
Absolutely, 100%. And I guess when it comes to coaching, Jade, I mean, you got quite a few students in PE. What would you say the main thing is, or how are you helping your students? Is it, Jade, the sounding board? Is it, Jade, you're helping people conquer their fears with ATPs? Is it, Jade, helping these students with regards to step by step? Is there a specific common theme that you see with your students?
Yeah, almost all of the above, Andrew. But, different students are starting a different journey. So as a coach, we really look at where the student is, right? So I've got some students that have never, ever bought a property before. They don't know how to work with a conveyancer. They don't know how to negotiate. They don't even know what an OTP is. Okay. And then I've got some students that have bought 10 properties before. They know the process. They know how to put offers in, all those things. That's just guidance. So we really start where the student is. And work our way from there. But really a sounding board, that's the most important thing, because as you know, Dave and Andrew, you still have that fear, right? Every single time you do a deal, you're still double checking yourself. And it's always nice just to have that coach there and say, listen, have you seen this? Have you looked at this? A big part, I think, of coaching is stopping people from making mistakes. Because the thing is, if you go out there and you make a mistake and you buy the wrong property, that's going to cost you a lot of money. So I think that's quite an important part of coaching.
It's going to cost you school fees. Okay.
Absolutely.
So Jade, stay on the line while we bring on Mark Berman. And ladies and gents, if you have just joined us, this is the coffee chat with not just Andrew, Dave. There's Jade, there's Mark, there's Colin, there's Nico. There's a whole group of us. If you have any property questions, property coaching questions, fine, absolutely. But any general questions around property development, multi-lets, flipping, whatever it is, please post it in the comments box. Tag in your friends. Give us some love on Facebook. So please take your friends in and just ask questions. So it's a very informal chat. We've got Mark Berman who's just joined us. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Nice to see you all. How's it, everyone?
How's it, Mark? We are all good. Hope you had a good weekend. I think for all the listeners who haven't met you yet, just introduce yourself.
Okay, cool. So obviously, you know my name now. I don't have to repeat that. My company is called Soundrock Property Consultants, or Soundrock Integrated Property Solutions. We have been in the development game now for approximately 30 years. We have built projects as small as a 40 square meter cottage in somebody's house, all the way through to 400 million Rand shopping center developments in the likes of Guguletu, Queenstown, etc., etc. So we've been around a bit and seen it all, honestly. But I think the most important thing about seeing it all is learning it over and over and over again. It's not like just the one time I've done it, so now I know it. This is definitely a whole experience from day to day. Things change. We've got laws that change. We've got acts that change. We have things that move, like in town planning, things move on a regular basis, and they also move town to town, city to city, province to province. So there's just so much to know and to learn, and it's just a continuous process. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, thanks, Mark. And I guess your full entry into the SAPIN TPA space is a bit different to that of, Jade or Nico or Dave, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit different because I've just had a different experience. Obviously I've also got residential properties. I've even got a guest house that I own for my sins, I must just say. But it's like everything's a learning experience. So when you think you know something and you venture out into something else, then you need to learn it all from the beginning. It's not all of a sudden that just because you know how to do one thing, you all of a sudden know everything. You don't just wake up in the morning and via osmosis. The universe manages to put all the information into your head. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly. And I mean, Mark, you've been in property for 30 years. I met Nico back in 2015, 2016, and Nico, somewhere around there. 2014, I met Dave around the same time. I met Jay 2017. So they all came through. And I guess your perspective I think your perspective is a bit different because they came through as students, whereas you've been in the industry for 30 years. Did this kind of thing used to exist 30 years ago? Did you have coaching and mentoring, and did you have a community? Did you have networking events? What is it like 30 years ago, and what's it like now if you have to compare?
Well, if I tell you my age, and then you'll see that all these age lines over here are caused by lack of coaching, lack of mentorship, lack of somebody being there to answer questions. And I think the biggest problem that there was out there until now is that who do you talk to? Who you're going to ask? Who? Somebody who's got their own vested interest that they wanted to kind of force their way into your deal, or tell you how to do something based on their opinion that they didn't actually know anything, but they knew somebody who once knew somebody who was a developer and he drove past it, and therefore now he knows everything. So it's, it was like hit and miss and really difficult. So having a thing like SAPIN and this network and coaching and mentorships and all this kind of stuff is like, for anybody getting into the game now, is a boon for them. It is like a godsend because you've got a team, you've got people you can bounce stuff off on, and nobody's trying to get in on the action. People just really care that you succeed, and that's really what matters. At the end of the day, we've got a massive country. I don't know how many 100 million square kilometers we have of land. We've got close to 60 million population. Everybody needs somewhere to live. Everybody needs places to shop, places to work, etc., etc. So there's no shortage of opportunities, but there are shortages of people who want to do it and have the know-how. So when you have the want to do it, then we want to give people the know-how of how to do it so they can be successful. Because the only way we're going to change and empower people and grow this country's economy is through people developing themselves and others, really.
Absolutely, totally agree. So, Mark, it's a pleasure to have you on us, to have you with us this afternoon. I'm just busy checking out some questions that which are coming through. We will answer your questions. But before we go to Colin, let's bring Nico on board. Nico is another property coach for the Property Academy. Nico, come say how's it?
Hello, everybody. How are you, Andrew?
I'm very good at you, man. High five. Bloody hot, eh?
I thought, well, I wasn't eating well. I might as well just come and pop in.
So maybe tell the guys what you're doing on Saturday.
Cool. So on Saturday at Precision Realty, the brokerage, we've held a buying experience. So we've actually had quite a lot of people that attended with us. I think it was a fantastic day, successful day. Had a lot of people that viewed opportunities that they never knew existed, and I think that's what's so nice, right? We can go and show them different strategies, different types of houses, different ways of lease agreements, all of that, what to look out for when you go and view a property, walk around, what is structural damage, where you look for. And I think that was what is so fantastic, because you can interactively start asking people questions, and there's a lot of answers coming out of the group as well. So you also learn from each other.
Sure. And I mean, Nico, you've been coaching a few people recently. What are some of the blocks that your students have or when they come to you? Is it OTP? Is it the mindset? What is it?
Yeah, to be honest, I think most of them are scared because they have this dream. They're all dreaming and they have this vision of what they would like to achieve, but they don't know how to get there. And I think it's unpacking all of those blocks of what is keeping you from achieving that, and then breaking it down and getting over it, right? How do we break it? How can we get over this and then move on forward and get it done, right?
Because it's very easy in a classroom or workshop. Everyone wants to be wealthy. Everyone wants the dollar. Everyone wants the cash. But when push comes to shove and you got to walk that journey by yourself, it's a different conversation, right?
100%.
And fears. I mean, I know for myself, when I've been working with quite a few, when I deal with quite a few newbie investors, some of them will do everything up until OTP, and then it's just they scared of it. Andrew, what happens if? What happens if? And I'll just help them overcome it. I explain to them, don't worry. If it gets accepted, you don't have the finance, we've got an exit clause for it. Have you read through the OTP, making sure they understand what's in the OTP? And that's what a coach does. A coach pushes them. A coach can see where they're going wrong, where they're lacking, what they're doing wrong. And if you can identify what it is, and you know what? 9 times out of 10, it's mindset. Yeah. It's a lack of belief, eh?
It's confidence. It's all about building up that confidence, but also, like I think you've mentioned it earlier, having that soundboard saying, I want to go and do this. Do you agree with this? And understanding why he's doing it and then helping him to do it. Just say, yes, you are right. Get going, do it, and then move forward. And a lot of people just don't get to that point, and that's a problem.
Absolutely, eh? And we do have a student online with us. I think he's just struggling to get his audio to work. Dave, should we give him a few more minutes?
Why don't we do some questions and then we can go over to Colin and see if we can try over there.
There's some questions there. I think a lot for Mark Berman being a developer. There's someone asked about shopping center finance, Irvine, HV7 standards of ranging from 450 to 1,100 squares, business 2 in Swanee. How do I secure the finance for that project? Hi, Mark. Samantha's asking the questions about buying the land outright, or would it be okay with the building a unit on said land for the current owners? So, Mark, you can also see those questions, eh?
Absolutely, I can see the questions. Sure.
Let's pick a question there, Mark, and let's just start answering them.
Okay, so yeah, let's go through project finance and that kind of thing as a first off, because I think that was the first one that came up there. Cool. What we do, the way that we operate is I've got a business partner. His name's Reginald Mizariri, and he does all the funding for us. He finds the funding for the projects. What's very important, obviously, from a funding point of view, is when I put a project together for Reginald to finance, I make sure that the return is in line with what the banks want, or the security is in line with what the banks want, in order to actually get that funding in place. So obviously banks have a requirement in terms of equity that you put in, and it depends on your own balance sheet as well as the project return on investment. I'm not going to use any big words, and if I do use any big words that anybody doesn't understand, please put it in the comments box and ask what the definition of the word is. I'm not here to sound impressive. I'm here to solve your issues. So, project finance is very particular, and what we need to do is evaluate what your requirement is, and if you do need extra equity, the raising of that equity as well. So, get in touch with Alani, who will then put you in touch with me, whatever, and we can see how we can work together to solve that particular problem.
If we're going to buy a piece of land where we're building 4 units versus going and buying a piece of land where we're building a shopping center, retail store, it's different, right? Because a small, like what Mark van Jasveld did, 1,300 square meters here in Edenvale, he raised some private finance, got some equity out of his property, got a bit of lending from the bank. So it depends on the level we're looking at, right? But a very important thing you said there, Mark, is understanding how the lender works. If we go to Tough have a specific type of, they've got a specific loan, what's what I'm looking for? A specific
loan to value
criteria, yes. With a certain loan to value, certain interest rates they use. If we go to Arnold, they've got 7 different funds. They've got different criteria where they may go up to 100%, and they may take equity from it. So You need to understand what banks are out there, what lenders are out there, what's their loan to value criteria? Are they hungry for work right now? And to understand who's out there. Is it commercial finance? Are we going to Standard Bank? Are we going to, where are we going? I mean, Mark, how many lenders are out there, more or less?
Well, you can, as you've got 10 fingers and 10 toes, and you can times that by about 100, because you've got friends, family, you've got the institutions, you've got private equity funds, you've got the government, you've got so many different places that you can raise money from. But it always goes down to the nature of the project and which lenders look at what projects. And most guys, it's quite interesting because most guys don't think with the funding of the project before they actually start with the project. And you should actually work out how you're going to fund it right in the beginning as part of your actual investment criteria. Because if you all of a sudden you've got your OTP in and you've got everything, and you've spoken to tenants, or you've in the commercial space, you've already started doing leasing or whatever else it is, and all of a sudden you go, I wonder where I'm going to get the equity from, because the bank said to me, I need 20% equity in my project. And I don't know where I'm going to get this equity from. I better phone a friend. And all of a sudden, all chaos ensues because you can't get to the criteria that the bank requires up front. But a very interesting thing is the different types of finance. When you buy a house, you get a 20-year mortgage. When you get involved in commercial, you only get a 10-year mortgage. And when you're doing a project, you get project finance. Those things are substantially different types of funding, substantially different costs of funding, raising fees, everything else, it all changes. And, it's like, I had somebody the other day, it was quite funny actually, and they said to me, okay, so I'm going to do this, I bought this property and it's going to be a 20-year mortgage bond. And I asked the question, but it's a commercial property, you're only going to get 10 years on it. And their faces, their jaw dropped, because they'd done their whole feasibility study based on a 20-year mortgage loan. So all of a sudden it drops to 10 years, your capital versus interest changes dramatically, and the project instantly became unviable. So, but fortunately he was able to ask me the question, and that's the big thing, is to have somebody that you can bounce things off, because when you start doing things without being able to ask the right people the right questions, you can land up getting involved in something. Can you imagine he signed all the deals and all of a sudden somebody popped in and said, oh, by the way, it's 10-year finance, and this is your raising fee, and this is what the cash flow is going to be, and this is how you have to pay it back. And he looks at his inflow versus his outflow, and he can't do it anymore, and the whole thing falls flat on its face, and he's signed already. Can you imagine?
Yeah. Mark, there was a student that came into our environment, I think it was last year at some point. Heard about this workshop I'm doing this weekend coming. And he sat there and he told me a story how he got into just a normal residential deal, right? Signed the OTP, didn't read it properly, didn't put the right suspensive clause in. Long story short, he was offered the finance, but not at the terms he wanted it. The terms were not favorable. So guess what? They said, this offer was subject to finance. We are offering you finance. Therefore, you have fulfilled that suspensive clause. He said, no, wait, I don't want to take it. Guess what? You got sued for the commission. 80,000 Rand. He was sued for the commission because he made that small mistake. And take that, Mark, and take that to the next level. You deal with 800 million Rand or 100 million Rand. It's a different conversation, right?
It's a very different conversation because, when you're doing something in your own name, and this is a very important thing for everybody to realize, you've got the Consumer Protection Act that you can fall back on. The minute you're doing something on behalf of a company, that all falls away. And when people are making you sign surety on an OTP on behalf of a company to be formed or formed, and you signing as guarantor on behalf of that, you ain't walking away. You ain't walking away. The law does not protect the consumer in that. You're not a consumer. You're seen as a professional individual who knows what they are doing. So best be a professional individual and know what you're doing.
Yeah, and just understand the market, understand OTPs, understand what you're doing. And this is a conversation, Mark. It's so frustrating for me, but I get why beginners don't get it. Is they come along and they'll say, geez, Andrew, 80,000 Rand seems so expensive for coaching. They say that to me. Okay, is it expensive? If anyone says that, it tells me they don't see the value in what coaching is. And I get it, because if they don't know who we are, our backgrounds, if they don't know what school fees we paid, I think the difference is that 80,000 Rand, I always say you're going to pay your school fees one way or another. You're either going to pay it up front, right, to minimize, never to get rid of all the mistakes, to minimize the mistakes, or you're going to pay your school fees in a very simple mistake in an offer to purchase or somewhere. The difference is at least you know what you're in for up front, right? And you're not taking a gamble anymore. You're taking a calculated risk that says someone's going to hold my hand. And yes, there's no guarantees in this lifetime, but at least I've got a sounding board. I've got someone who can show me the know-how. I'm not sure. I'll bring Jade on board. I'll bring Nico on board. I'll bring Dave back on board. I don't know if they've got any experiences which they can share with us. If they do, let us know. But there's a question there from Mr. Weymers out there in Cape Town about what are the different sources of financing for deals other than bank financing, and how do you access them? That's actually a really cool question. I spent about an hour on that this Saturday. You know, if you can't go to a bank, how do you get financing? But I mean, Jade, Nico, Dave, can you think of any stories how you've either saved a student the money by a mistake they were going to make, or can you think of a scenario where you helped them make money? Just any positive or negative stories?
Yeah, no, 100%. I can think about a couple, but I think most of them that came to me in the beginning was the fact that they would have signed an OTP, but they didn't really do the market values on the property, and then taking all of the costs that you would have done on that project into consideration, it would not have been a feasible deal. They would have lost quite a bit of money in it, and they would have taken very long to actually get the equity growth in order to even break even. Yeah. And they were actually able to then get out of that OTP just because of the guidance that I gave them. So that was the very nice and the very first coaching session with them. So I said, well, now I've already paid for my own coaching, so let's go.
Absolutely. And you, James?
Yeah, Andrew, so often what I find with students is it's either the numbers or the area research, and the OTP is often a big stumbling block. So I think I've had a lot of students where they were literally ready to submit the OTP, and I said, just hold on, send me the OTP, I'll have a read through it. And then all of a sudden you just see all these clauses they didn't take out and clauses they actually didn't put in. And then after that, we either saying, well, listen, we're walking away from the deal, or let's go ahead and you can put the OTP in, but you're now protected. So a lot of value, I think, with the coaching is actually stopping students from going ahead with deals that they think are good deals. When you go through their numbers, oftentimes they miss the holding costs, for instance. I see that quite often. And that really just turns the deal on its head. So yeah, I've had a couple of interesting situations. We had a coaching student from Cape Town that I coached last year that's about to go into quite a large deal, one of his first deals. And once again, I just asked him to send me the OTP, and we just found that if he sent that OTP through, he would have been in very big trouble. So I think that really is the value of coaching.
Definitely.
I just want to jump in here quickly, because it's so true what Jade said. It's like that OTP is like the most important thing just straight out of the get-go, and Nico's verified that as well. But and the holding cost is something that people don't actually think about. Somehow they think that because the bank has granted them a deal, that somehow this will just roll onto itself. Now, I've got a coaching student, and he's a fantastic guy, and he's an awesome businessman, make no mistake, okay? And he put together this development, and he was very, very happy about it, but he had this idea that there was something that he was missing, and he wasn't sure what it was. So what he did is he decided that he was going to pay for coaching, and so that he could run it past somebody. And fortunately for me, he decided he wanted to work with me. So he sent me all the information after he'd signed up, and I went through everything. And to cut a long story short, what he had done is he was paying top dollar for a piece of property which was not zoned. And he then had to do the zoning process, which in the area that it was in was likely to take no less than about 2 years, because there were going to be objections. There's no way that this thing would just happen on its own. So that's the first thing. The next thing that occurs is that he never took into consideration the fact that the property had a small business on it, but the small business would never generate the amount of money required to pay the interest on the loan for the 2 years while it was sitting there. So he was attracting a loan straight off, which was, I don't know, about 50 odd million rand that he was going to be buying the property for. And for 2 years, he had to make the mortgage payments on this without being able to cover that in any way, manner, or form. There was just like no way. I mean, and he never spotted that as a first off thing, because his project was, oh, well, it's just going to run on its own, and the finance, this is what my return on investment is after it's built. And that's where the problem set in. So yeah, so that's a story of why you should do something like coaching.
Absolutely, yes, yes. And that's the thing, Mark. It takes one big deal just to knock you up the water, eh? Yeah, so you've got to be so careful.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
imagine signing surety for a bond which is 10 years long for 50 million rand, and now you have to make the payments. How? You tell me how. If you've got to have mega money. You just got to have money.
No, absolutely, yeah. Yourself, Dave?
Yeah, I actually wanted to flip the question on its head. I want to talk about the only time I've had clients lose money, coaching students lose money. I had a student who decided to do a deal here in Cape Town, and they just messaged me on a Tuesday and like, oh, I did this deal and signed the OTP and everything, and I was just like,
You didn't run past you.
ended up like losing $250,000 rand because the deal is just not good. The OTP wasn't built in the right way to get in their exits. So it's definitely sort of the other side of it. Of we're coaches, we're not always, we can't always sort of solve the problem and get it done for you. But my first goal as a coach is definitely to help you avoid those mistakes, because when you lose money in property, you lose money big. So even if your first deal isn't super profitable, I'd rather make sure you don't lose money on the first deal, because that first deal is the most important one to get started. You'd rather just get it done and make sure you're doing it safely and securely. That's important.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's a big thing, Dad, for a lot of people is the OTPs, the confidence, the know-how of getting it right. Hence, we put an OTP course together in 2020 for that reason. But I think, Dave, let's maybe run through the people that have just joined us. Welcome, it's Andrew, Dave, and with Mark, Nico, Jade, property coaches with the academy. It's a coffee chat, and we're talking about property, students, mistakes, successes. There's quite a few questions. So Keela was asking a question around when you buy a new property in a new PTY, do you have to get an accountant's letter? We will answer that. John Weymers talking about financing that's not through banks. We'll answer that in a minute. So if you have any questions, ask us now. We've got about 5 more minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and we'll answer your property questions. So Dave, take us through this week, eh?
Cool. So you guys will see a link in the chat box for that. We'll get you sorted to find out all about all the events. But high level, we've got a webinar pro with Nico. So maybe if Nico's in reach, you can quickly pull him on. Nico's running a webinar tonight at 6 o'clock. Nico, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so this is what we're doing at the Precision Realty Brokerage, Dave. Everything with regards to what's the current deals that we have available, whether it is multi-lets, whether it is angel investments, whether it is something for your typical customer who's looking to buy something off plan, having Section 13 discounts. We got a wide variety of different types of opportunities, and we're just going to display them tonight and maybe have a couple of questions, answers afterwards.
What time's that?
From 6 to 7.
Okay.
Yeah, 7. And then Wednesday this week, I've got a premier networking event in Cape Town. So that's happening in Cape Town foreshore from about 6 until about 10. It's super informal. It's really an opportunity for everyone to meet each other and network properly. I've, much to some speakers' disgrin, I've said we're not doing presentations. We're just talking and chatting and getting to know each other. It's the first time being back in person here in Cape Town. So it's going to be really fun for us. Andrew and I have a live stream. Sorry, Drew?
No, I just think it's awesome. It's back to face, eh?
Yeah, it's going to be so good to be real humans and not just have like spaghetti and noodles and meatballs for dinner. Some nice dinner, some nice drinks. It'll be good fun. Thursday lunchtime, so 1 o'clock, Andrew and I'll be live again on Facebook. That's with Robin Booth and Ridwan Buster talking about Airbnb. So if you guys are curious about how Airbnb is working in the market, it's a really good opportunity for that. Thursday night, that's 1 o'clock.
1, okay.
Yep. Thursday night, coaching and legal support. So we'll have Intergen on. Andrew and I will be sitting there answering questions for our intermediate professional members. And then this weekend, Andrew's got a 2-day workshop out in Joburg in the East Rand, talking about the fundamentals of property investment. It's going to be real fun.
Awesome. And you'll be there as well, Mark, this weekend?
Yes, I'll be there this weekend, definitely.
Going into a bit more detail. I've invited Bruno and Shilly Boy as well. Historically, we've always done 1-day property workshops, which are great, but I think a 2-day workshop is going to be a lot better because you can go home Saturday night, come back with all your questions. And Dave, I'll also be covering things like the eviction process for tenants, managing, vetting. Remember how we, back in the old day, Dave, you said that Sunday morning slot for how we found the tenants, how we managed the tenants. Now I've got that time back. I'm going to bring that back into the workshop. And as I said, I'll be doing scenarios. We'll be running the numbers, the ROIs, the gross yields. Where do we find these deals? I'll see how the day goes. Might start calling agents with you and getting you to start calling agents and start finding deals yourself. So if you're in or around the Gauteng area, join myself, Mark, Berman, Nico, the whole team. It's 2 full days of property, and we'll make it fun as well, which is awesome. Cool. Okay, so let's go back to some questions, eh?
Cool. So let's tackle John's question. So a little bit of context. So John and Kashni are pretty much doing a couple of deals. I viewed a property with them at the end of last week, but they've maxed out their bank affordability. So we're looking at, I don't know, let's talk to the coaches and see what other options there are for financing. I think installment sale agreements always comes up as a good option to talk about as well. So that's my suggestion as a sort of another thing to throw in the box and probably to steal one from Jade. Installment sale agreements are a really nice way to fund that, essentially using the seller's finance to go there. I don't know if that suits that deal, but that's one of my answers.
Okay, we need to go.
What do you reckon, Jade?
Yeah, Dave. So as you say, installment sale, definitely one of my favorite strategies. So either they can do it if there's an existing bond over the property, then you can just take over the existing bond payments. Or if the seller's actually paid off the house, they can buy the property via installment sale. It's really called a custings brief. That's the technical word for it. And what happens is the property would then register upfront into their company name or to the personal name. Hopefully they're not buying their personal name, into the company name, and they then pay that purchase price off over a period of time. So it's a really, really nice strategy if you can negotiate and get it right for the seller to agree. Just one thing on installment sales, it really needs to be a win-win situation. So you need to get the seller to understand what they're gaining from actually letting you pay the property off over a period of time, right? So really exciting strategy.
Awesome. Nico, anything from your side?
Yeah, so look, you also should consider doing joint venture agreements or partnerships with someone else who can bring value to your project, right? And I think that's the main key important thing there. You need to understand what is the shortfalls that you have and try and get someone who can obviously supply you with that benefits, whether it is just, doing the work or providing you with funding or, just bond affordability, maybe a little bit of cash. But you need to plan that out and see that picture and then start looking for the correct person that can fit that role.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we've said installment sale agreements, seller financing, JVs. Mark, anything from your side?
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's so many different ways of doing things, and it's all about strategy. It always goes back to strategy. Like, what do you want to do? What is your ultimate end game? And with everything that we do, we always look at the end game before we start the beginning. So how do you want to exit? What is it that you want to do? How long are you going to hold it for, et cetera, et cetera. That then sets out how you want to do it right in the beginning. So obviously, JVs and all those kind of things are big deals. I mean, I've just done a JV now with somebody where, the learning curve is so important, because also, when you do a JV with somebody, you need to make sure that the person you're doing a JV with knows what they're doing, so that you can capitalize on having them there as an asset to you, as opposed to just taking over because you're in a terrible predicament. And that happens a lot, I must just tell you, when people get desperate because they can't get out of a situation that they've gotten themselves into, and then they decide they need a JV partner, and the JV partner, because they're on the back foot, then takes advantage of the situation and literally steamrolls them into everything that they want done. So, those are things that one has to look at carefully up front.
Absolutely. Awesome. Dave, how are we doing for time? Are there any more questions that you want to hit there, Dave?
We're flat out of time and we've got too many questions. But we can. Zakila asked us this question. He's fairly early, so I want to give him first come, first serve. Hi guys, quick one. When you buy a property under PTY, do you always have to produce the accountant letter to the bank stating the company is solvent, newly formed company that has no trading history? Pretty much. You'll always need to. If you're applying under company finance, under a company, you're always going to have to demonstrate something from their companies. The solvency letter is definitely one of them, but often you can provide company financial records if those exist. So it does vary, unless the guys have had another experience.
Mostly agree with you, Dave.
I agree with you, Dave.
All the transactions, especially on new companies to be formed, that is a requirement. They will ask for it.
And it's simple, and that's where some estate agents, not all, or maybe say the uninformed agents, I've had conversations with them saying you cannot get a bond through a company. Well, technically, the company can't stand surety for the bond. I agree with you, Mr. Agent or Mrs. Agent, but a human being can still stand surety for the loan, so I can still buy the property through the company, and I can stand surety for that. So there's a big misconception out in the market, right, where people go, it's a company, it's new, you'll never get finance. We get 100% finance on most of the deals, right?
2 last week.
Yeah. So it happens. So I think, Dave, let's do a quick round robin with Jade and Nico and Mark. Just, guys, what is one thing you'd like to leave our audience for today? And today was about meet some of the coaches. What are the pitfalls? What are the positives? Why should someone do coaching? I mean, Mark, from your side, what's one thing that you'd like to leave the audience?
Okay, it's like, for me, the most important thing about the mentorship program that we're running, the coaching, is that you have somebody that has your best interests at heart. And that's the bottom line of it. So you've got somebody who's going to look at every single angle, who has experience, who can give you advice moving forward, and you're going to save yourself a ton of money. I just want to give you one small little example of something on that exact line. I've got somebody that I'm working with right now that went and bought a piece of property thinking that he had gotten some great advice from somebody else. And the guy's obviously is a friend, so he gave him advice. He brought me the project. The first thing that happened was I checked on the town planning scheme. And what his friend had told him he could do on the property, as opposed to what the town planning scheme said, were two opposite things. The man has wasted a ton of money because he had to pay cash for the property. So now you can understand, like, if he would have had somebody who's professional, who does this every single day of his life, who lives, breathes, and reputation depends upon doing and making the right decisions, then he would never have done that, ever, 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 ever. Now we've got to try and salvage what he's done in order for him to recoup his money. That's running backwards. That's not running forward. So it's my advice to every single person out there. It doesn't matter how much experience you've got. You always need to bounce things off people. And this forum that we have is the best way to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. Okay, I'll come to Jade.
Yeah, Andrew, I think also just tying in a little bit with Mark, don't be scared to pay your school fees up front. You're probably going to end up losing a lot more than what your coaching costs you in the market because you think you can do it yourself. So really don't be scared of that. Make sure you do your homework. Make sure that you look into us. All of us have got different experiences in the property scene, and don't be scared to move forward and actually invest in yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jade. And Nico, what about yourself?
So, Andrew, I think, I always talk to my students, and always have this one thing comes up, right? And they say, if I only knew then what I know now, my life would be so much different, right? And I think that is such a valid discussion to have, right? And that's why I couldn't go to older people. I needed to go to younger people for advice, right? Because clearly they didn't advise me correctly. But, if I just knew one simple thing, when I came out of school, to not buy my own house in my own personal name, affordability would have changed. My whole life would have been different today. Just because of that one simple thing. And I think, therefore, coaching and mentorship and a network like this is the best because of the fact that you get updated information that's relevant right now and you can make proper decisions.
Yeah, and make some money. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Nico. I'll finish up with Dave.
Thank you.
And we'll see you this Saturday.
Right, I'll be there.
This Saturday, this Sunday. Thanks, Mark. We'll see you on Saturday and Sunday.
Absolutely.
Cool, Jade. Thanks,
Andrew,
buddy. We'll speak.
Sorry, man, just a quick one from our side.
Sure.
Andrew, just quickly, if there's anyone in from PE or East London attending at the moment, on the 2nd of March, we've got a premier event that we're hosting, a networking event. So really looking forward to that. So if in PE or East London or even the Garden Route, please come through to the SAPIN premier event. We'd love to have you. Thanks for having us, Andrew.
Yeah, pleasure, Jade. Let's get all those PE and East London people into your area. It'll be awesome. Thanks, guys. So thanks for joining today's coffee chat. Every Monday, 1 o'clock with myself and Dave. There are quite a few questions there. And Dave, what we could even do is looking at taking some of those questions and answering them on Thursday night. That's the group coaching and legal support for our paid members. We'll make sure, I think we've answered most of the questions for today. Dave, how does it look from your end?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions that came in last minute, but unfortunately we just don't have time to. We're already well over, so we don't have time to answer. So maybe if I can, I'll twist Drew's arm and we can do an Instagram live a little bit later and hit some of these questions if we have a couple of minutes today.
That'll be cool. Port Elizabeth, I'm here. Tandeka, speak to Jade, and Alani will sort you out. Okay, what else is coming in? Yeah, I think it was different, hey, Dave? Different to get the different coaches and their opinions and perspectives on how everything goes. And you can see there's a lot of people doing developments. There's a lot of people going out buying land, thinking they're going to build, which they do. It's just it's very dangerous if you just don't have the support, if you don't know what you're doing. It's a different story, Dave. If an uneducated investor goes and buys an off-plan unit, there's less that can go wrong. And don't get me wrong, things can still go wrong, but there's less, right? You buy off plan, you sign the paperwork, 100% bond, very simple. If it's a reputable builder, great. But you're going building and developing without experience, without just knowing the property market. I personally, Dave, know of a lot of investors who have been knocked out of the property game because of that. So just make sure you have support wherever you go for that support. Alani is there for help. Cool.
Yeah, it's about understanding the limits. It's don't sign an OTP until you've got an expert to take a look at it, until you've got someone who's been there, and that's the whole idea. It's not necessarily that your coach is going to do everything for you and give you all the tools that give you everything that you need to magically make money. It's about coaches managing your risk and helping you set realistic goals and going through that. So I understand the limits and definitely get the right advisors on your team before you make any commitments, especially in the development space. If you want to, it's a very common thing. Oh, I've got this piece of land out in the middle of nowhere I want to develop. It's just, it's hard to just go straight into that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I agree. And I think that's why, Dave, that's why we've got quite a few people attending this weekend, is to actually delve a bit deeper into that. Like, what do you mean, Andrew? Where should I have started? What should it look like? What should I look out for in the title deeds, for example? And just tick a few boxes and you'll know if it's going to work or not. Okay, cool, Dave. Sounds good, man.
Cool. Awesome.
Let's see. So, ladies and gents, we'll see you at some of the events this week, whether it's Wednesday now, Thursday, Saturday, or if it's Monday at 1 o'clock. We'll see you all then.
Perfect. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Just Dave.